I just have that I will not fail determination no matter what happens.
Yeah. What does the name Coyote Ugly mean?
So coyotes bite their arm off out of a trap in order to escape. So Coyote Ugly means you'd rather bite your arm off than wake that person up and sneak out. So that's what Coyote Ugly is.
You have to get the close. And that means that you have to live simple and pay a majority of the profit the first time around to the investor.
100%. Absolutely. And, I put all my skin in the game. I maxed out every credit card I had. I put equally as much as they did into the business. So they saw, I was like, this is not going to fail. I have everything on the line.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, a podcast about growth, mindset, and entrepreneurship. I'm Moshe Popack, and today we chat with business pioneer Joanna Olsen.
Joanna is the proprietor of multiple Coyote Ugly Saloons. She has thrived in a male-dominated profession, shattering the glass ceiling along the way, and has achieved huge milestones throughout her career. Joanna and Moshe discuss entrepreneurship, running a prolific business, and why she's now diving into the real estate industry full steam ahead. Before we start the show, just a quick ask. If you're enjoying Common Denominator, we'd be grateful if you'd subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps promote the show, and it helps us get great guests. Thanks so much, and now enjoy Moshe's conversation with Joanna Danielle Olsen.
Hi, Joanna, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to congratulate you on the super success of Coyote Ugly, 13 locations with another 8 around the world. Why do you think, from a core perspective, a lot of people do the same things. Some things work, some things don't. But from a business perspective, why do you feel Coyote is successful?
I think it's successful because it's a mix of everyone who wants to just go out and have fun, forget their problems. It's choreographed dances on the bar, and you've seen the movie. Mm-hmm. So it's a very just fun atmosphere where we encourage people to just let loose, drink, and dance. The women are invited to dance on the bar and just have a really good time.
Yeah, I always think that's a simple model, but then you also have to, I always think the backside, everybody sees, from an entertainment perspective, okay, it could be movies, it could be things that people do. Some end up financially successful and some don't. I know someone was telling me that a general, let's just call it a nightclub or a bar, they have to change every maybe 3 to 5 years, but you've been around a long time. Why do you think that's just been sustainable? You've been able to be sustainable?
I do think the reason it's a very nostalgic thing that I've seen just circle back and forth, and before I did own a nightclub, and you are correct, you do have to make so many changes and adjust and have different nights and different themes and add so much. But with Coyote Ugly, it's been successful because buying the property has a lot to do with it. So you have that control, which I love. And you can make improvements, do things, but it's actually a hole-in-the-wall bar that, I think is really, it's low cost to open. So it's not like you're coming hugely out of pocket to open it to begin with. And then it's owning the real estate and having everything under your control, and then really just growing your team with you. That I've started this, 21 years ago. And I still have 3 of my people from the original, one of my security. They've grown with me, and now they own parts of it with me as well. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, no, that way I like both of the ideas of interest aligned. In other words, the people that I guess, because I see businesses like going to war, going to battle, because it can be so crazy. As you're growing a business, there's some crazy stuff that happens, but your core group of people, and I really want to hone in on that, the fact that you gave them a piece of the business and your interests are aligned, becomes, I guess, like family.
Absolutely. 100%. That's so important. And I've had that ethic since day one, and they are like a family to me. I mean, from the cleaning person to the bathroom valet, most of them been with me since day one. And when we go through tough times, whether it's a COVID or a hurricane or all these unknown things, as you know, when you're an entrepreneur, you don't know, those things come out of nowhere, and you have to be the main leader and get people and get your whole entire crew through those difficult times.
Yeah. And I think of just also day in, day out. I know maybe a bar is a little different than a restaurant, but if someone has, let's just say, not a good experience in a restaurant, they're probably not going back. And that's why I know maybe 95, 98% of restaurants after like 3 years, they don't exist anymore.
Right.
So that's a very unique that you were able to sustain. That are all the locations. So you own the real estate. Do you franchise the?
So Lil is the founder, so she franchises them out. But we partnered up before the movie Coyote Ugly came out. So what happens? What I like about it is I had the opportunity to make Coyote Ugly the way I wanted. It's not like a McDonald's where they're like, this is how you're going to do it. And you adjust each one to a different city. If you go to Coyote Ugly, each city is very different, and location is key. So when I look at buying the real estate, I look at, it has to be the best location. And that is the number one thing. I think with failure of nightclubs, bars, restaurants, anything, you have to have great location, great parking, all those other things that are very, those are super important for the success of the business. And I was very fortunate to have that foresight, 21 years ago to buy the right buildings in the right location and in the middle of the main strips.
No, I definitely agree with that. Why do you think, for you, why do you think buying of the real estate was so important?
It's obviously as an investment and success point, everybody that I looked up to when I was younger, that's what I saw. I saw them owning. I know there's some mixed feelings about that nowadays, but I've always believed in owning the dirt. I bought my first condo when I was 22 years old and have grown that and grown a real estate business from that. And then I wanted again. My experience was when I was in Atlanta and had Coyote Ugly, a big lesson learned was we had our 5-year lease, and our 5-year lease was up. And my landlord came to me and said, you've been great. The business was booming, but I'm putting a parking garage here. So you have to, you're done, and tomorrow. And I remember that being one of the most heartbreaking times because it was my first one. It really broke my heart for my staff because it was just heartbreaking. So I said, I will never let this happen again, and I will make sure I only buy my buildings from now on and the liquor licenses. So it's a very good investment. In Florida, they're both pieces of property. So you have big assets, and that's a big deal, and you do care, and you never give up. So if you do have things like, again, I bring up hurricanes because that's something we do deal with and have dealt with that live, where we close down for a month or 2 months or things like that. So, it's very important to have your own real estate and have that control.
Yeah. And tell me, let's just say in Florida, is there a limited liquor license? Is that what it is? It's hard to get liquor license? It
is. It's a 4 OCP liquor license. So, for instance, when I bought it, say 20 years ago, they were for sale for $70,000. If you were to purchase it now from me, it's like a piece of property. It would cost you $450,000.
Wow.
So it's a good in the state of Florida. It's not the same in Atlanta. Atlanta, you go to purchase it, and it's a $20,000 a year, and they renew it, and they decide whether to renew it or not. So again, that's why I really focused more on Florida, and I like that aspect of it, that you also own that, and that's a piece of property that you have.
Right. And so I guess is it kind of like a moratorium on how many the state of Florida liquor licenses they give out? They
yes,
probably
correct.
So you have this, and that's it, and you can't get any more.
Correct.
Right.
So you have to go purchase it from a building that's closing, or a business that's closing, or get a broker, or if you reach out and you just want to sell it,
that's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
a lot of people don't know that, so they do like that.
That's interesting because I know,
and they actually do the state of Florida does a lottery every year that you enter for $150, and they give away 10 liquor licenses per year. So, key to people out there.
Interesting.
Go to that liquor license lottery, and I've known one person who won one, and you literally win it.
Wow. Right. You to pay $150,
$150, and you can win a $450,000 liquor license.
I love that. What does the name Coyote Ugly mean?
Well, it comes from when you have a nice, fun night out and you go home with someone and you wake up and you really don't know where you are, and you look over and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? So coyotes bite their arm off out of a trap in order to escape. So Coyote Ugly means you'd rather bite your arm off than wake that person up and sneak out. So that's what Coyote Ugly is. Yep. It's like, this person's so ugly, I'd rather bite my arm off than wake them up and sneak out of this place. Guy, girl, whatever, whoever you're with. Group of people, anybody.
Playing it. I love that. And obviously they made the film. I guess, does it do justice to?
Absolutely, it does. Lil is my partner, and when you watch the movie, they say Lil. It is absolutely if you go to a Coyote Ugly right now, it's very similar. We make, a few adjustments and changes. We have a DJ and add some things, but the girls do Devil Went Down to Georgia, Pour Some Sugar on Me. It's all choreographed dances. We have dance practice every week. So it's the girls work really hard, and they all share their tips, because one of the things is, people always ask me, people always steal from you in this bar business? Like, it's a very, when you tell someone you're in a bar, they don't understand how you make money doing that. And I said, no, because they share tips. They're a team. They work together. They're dancing and they're doing things, and they're really become a family as well.
I love that. I want to go back kind of like to 2001, like the first, you're like, okay, I'm going to buy, like, what actually happened there for you to go ahead and say, because I know you said you bought your condo and you're doing other things, and I guess you made a decision to open Coyote Ugly. How'd that come to be?
So I was visiting my family in New York, and my cousin's like, we're going out. So we went to a Coyote Ugly and Hogs and Heifers that night. So I walked in, and
Familiar.
It was,
grew up in New York.
Yep,
by the way,
exactly. So I walked in myself, had that experience, and was like, they were like, hey, it's one of the girls literally yelled on the microphone, because they yell at you, and they were like, hey, you supermodel, whatever, get on this bar and do a shot of tequila, or get the F out of here. And my cousin looked at me, and she's hardcore New York. She was like, she looked at me like, you better get your ass up there. And before I knew it, I was on the bar and having shots. And then about 6 shots in, me and Lil were talking, and I had some validity, because I did have a nightclub, Paradox, in Atlanta. So I said, I want to do this concept. And so we talked literally a week later and started looking actively for the location. So I think that's a difference of people. It's talking about it or actually doing it. And so because I did have a nightclub already, she knew I was serious, and we did a 4-city deal right then.
So you went to the owners in New York and cut a deal and said, I want exclusive in these. Wow.
I went, and then I picked my cities.
Wow. That's really nice. So then you found, but how did you, it was just, I guess you just take the brand, but did you take in other investors or?
Yes. So at the time, I did get my degree in architecture and design, but I had 3 jobs when I opened my first bar. I babysat my architectural clients. Waited tables, did it all. So as you're actively opening. And so I'm sorry, go back to the question of where did I get the money? Yes. Yeah. So it didn't take much to open it. So we did at that time sign a lease. And I go back to my partner, who's still one of my partners now, and he said, you believe in the person, and I believe you weren't going to fail. And the worst case scenario was, we're going to take the lease back over. But I did find one investor at the time, and then for $50,000, I gifted him 10% of the business, and he made that 10 times over. So I would probably renegotiate that now, but it worked out as you need it then. You need support, and you need to go out, and you need to find it.
Right. I tell a lot of people, and I've seen this when people are starting out, I don't want to call it small-minded, but you have to give away a majority of something before you have a track record. Right. Otherwise, you're just going to keep hitting a wall. You have to start somewhere. The money is there, and the deals are there. People don't realize, right? So you have to spend your time, right? So that's your time, due diligence, finding the opportunity that makes business sense. It could be a widget, it could be a service, it could be something.
Right.
And then there are people that have money. It could be a cousin, it could be a brother, it could be a friend, whatever. But you have to get the close. And that means that you have to live simple and pay a majority of the profit the first time around to the investor.
100%. Absolutely. And, I put all my skin in the game. I maxed out every credit card I had. I put equally as much as they did into the business. So they saw, I was like, this is not going to fail. I have everything on the line. I come from a middle-class family, and my goal of being an entrepreneur was to have money for my future family, take care of my parents in any way that I could as well, and have freedom in my daily life in the future and be able to be my own boss.
Oh, I love that clarity. I mean, to hear, you're working 3 jobs, doing this stuff. It's not typical.
A hustle.
It's a hustle. Where do you think that came from?
I was born that way. We talk about that nature, nurture, this, that. I was really born that way. My mom was like, you were like this since you were 3, mowing lawns for $10, lemonade stands. You were always just, hustling to make, if I wanted those Jordache jeans or whatever I wanted, I would go, work. And since I was very young, 12 years old, icy hot, just always had jobs and always wanted to work. Always had a big work ethic, and I definitely got that from my parents. They worked very hard. But I saw them working, for a paycheck very hard all the time and didn't get to spend a lot of time with me. So, that was my goal for the future, to have more freedom in my daily life and build a team. So I could be sitting here with you. Why? The bars are still running.
But I love that you had such respect for your parents. A lot of times it can go either way. You can realize, oh, my parents weren't around, so I'm like, a negative sentiment towards the parents, or that they work so hard to provide for me.
Exactly.
Right?
And I clarify that that's what they did. And they were home at 6 or 7 after traffic with me and didn't go away on the weekends, doing those things. They were home with me or at my games and all of those things. So they were super supportive. But they worked their hard 9-to-5 jobs just to make, pay the bills every month. And I wanted to, be very different than that.
What was the, so after, so you opened in 2001, what would you say was, because everybody goes through it in their journey of, let's just say the journey of business.
Yeah.
What was your biggest challenge, would you say?
My biggest challenge was getting people to believe in me at age 24 and being a female. And it's a little bit like, oh, this girl was kind of just the doubters, a lot of haters and doubters.
There's not a lot of...
To keep self-confidence. Right. I mean, I think there's 1% of all people are females in this business.
That's what it is.
And to me, I just was like, you work hard, you make it happen. And I've always had that idea. I've never wanted or anything because I'm a female or a male or a certain color. I'm just like, if you have a hard work ethic, we live in America, you can make anything happen. And we have every opportunity to be as successful as we want to be in any realm.
I really appreciate that. I think a lot, like, in other words, there's this whole process to a typical person. I would love to bottle, your DNA in a way, and here, drink this, and you can have business success. Because the typical person, there's a lot of doubts and fears and stuff. You seem to be, you know what? I'm just going to jump in.
Yep.
And you have this kind of clarity that just do it, right? Like Nike.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a calculated risk, I would like to say, because even when I bought my first building, with my partners, it was like, okay, well, worst case scenario, it's not going to fail. But if it does, we have a building that will lease out and still get cash flow. So I just have that I will not fail determination no matter what happens. Yeah. I navigate through whatever obstacle comes up, which many do, as you know, and it's the difference of people who can get through those and those who cannot. And it's a lot. It's a lot of weight.
Right. It definitely is, but super rewarding on the other side.
100%. I wouldn't change it. Someone else that. It's so rewarding.
And I know I have a friend of mine that has a few car dealerships, and you talk about owning the real estate, and I want to hone in on that issue, that point too. Because again, you had a 5-year lease ends, the landlord's like, okay, I'm going to build a parking lot here. Devastating. But not just that, but you have a real asset that you own.
Correct.
And over time, and the area gentrifies, you're there anyhow. So I'm a big believer in, if you have a business, right? So first thing is you should buy your home,
Correct.
Right? Someone should buy their home, and then you should buy where you have your business. Right? If you're shipping stuff and you have a warehouse, buy that warehouse
100%.
if you can. Right? As the first, instead of investing in the S&P or somebody else or something else, always invest and buy the real estate of where you are. If you're going to be a long-term business.
Right. And that's where I've grown my empire. It's like I said, I started with a $200,000 condo, and I was like, well, I can rent for $1,500 a month or purchase this condo of an $800 mortgage, and plus I'm going to gain, it's going to go up in price and I can rent it out. And so what I've done along the way is, of course, I've had to sell some. And now but you sell, you buy better. You sell, you buy better. And now I'm able to keep the properties I have and just purchase more.
Right. Most people, I guess your financial literacy, most people actually don't have. So that's right. I mean, this is the way in capitalism in America how to build wealth. What you're saying, that's the correct way. I mean, I know also in Panama City there was a hurricane in 2018.
Correct.
How'd you deal with that?
That's devastating. And not only people don't realize, between my friends when I was talking, I went straight, you go straight, it's like a war zone. And we were fortunate enough that my building withstood it. And to go back to when I did close down, I had already had Panama City Beach and Tampa open when the Atlanta one was closed. So I was very fortunate that I still had those. But when you go into that scenario, what happened is all my staff's homes were wiped away. All their apartments were wiped away. So at that time, I found myself housing my staff immediately. They kids, they have children to feed, things to do. So you go straight in, got a house in Destin for them, put them at one of my rental homes, put them all there for a while, got them all other places. I ended up purchasing actually a home that now my manager and my people do live in. So those are the other things, but that's another asset to me. So now I've purchased a home close to the bar and moved, some girls go to Panama City to work for spring break. We just had spring break, which is a blast. College spring break's a good time. So yeah, that's how you handle that. But we were closed for a month. So those are things, you're not going to get cash flow for a month. You still have to, so when you own that building, you're going to put everything into it. Luckily, I only was fortunate. I just lost some windows and a sign. And of course, you have insurance, but you don't really want to use it too much because it's our insurance right now is going
ridiculous.
Skyrocketing. But it's being prepared for those and being fortunate enough to have some money saved up to get through those times and keeping that nest egg ready for anything that can happen at any time.
I know beginning of COVID, I turned to my wife and I said, by the way, there's no evictions. It's not, who knows if anybody's going to pay. We may go bankrupt.
Correct.
I don't know if you had that thought as well. COVID, right? It was a thing. What was going on there?
With my rental properties, I was fortunate because they were in Florida and in the Panhandle. So a lot of people actually came there to live during that time. So my rentals did well during that time. They're short-term, high-end luxury rentals. So I was fortunate during that part. Where obviously the bars were shut down for 6 months. So when I look back, I did keep a journal. I'm looking at, we could have 20 people sit at the bar, but if you stood up, I would get a ticket, or you could lose your liquor license. So during that time, it was so unique. I felt like the redheaded stepchild. Bars felt like not a necessity business, even though I have over 260 employees, but we were treated differently. We had different hours. I just felt like everyone was against us being open. So that was a really, really tricky time. And now when I look back, the science of, me standing up to sitting down, that'll make me catch COVID, or the laws that they would come up with weekly, and to stay on top of that. And every night wondering if I get this ticket, I could lose my liquor license permanently.
No, but
once we reopened.
Because I remembered, that was like, for me, it's like, I can if I go to the beach by myself, that's going to be a big problem. I remember that.
Yep. And this was in the Panhandle in Tampa. It was a little different than Miami, but it was what a trying, difficult time. And then we just didn't know when it was going to end. I knew, it was just an ongoing process.
I always say, this was an idea from the Bible. It was like Joseph was an advisor to the Pharaoh, and he was like, "Okay, we're going to have 7 years of plenty, but in business, right? And then there's going to be 7 years of famine." So you gotta, save for that, because that 100% will always happen. I see a lot of people fail because they think the good times are gonna roll forever.
Correct.
So you gotta, right? I'm sure you had some reserves and your willpower and, your plan A, B, C, D, E, right?
Yep.
And whatever works to try to get done what you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, if I had just opened Coyote Ugly that year and COVID hit, I wouldn't be open today,
Wow.
because if I would have just, you do need that cash flow back from your sound systems and your bar you just built and people coming in, and then boom, you're shut down. So I was like fortunate enough that I had been open for several years when that did happen. But it was a very trying time. I did a lot of praying myself during that time, and handing out a lot of like Publix gift cards to my employees and trying to, keep them because they had no income. And people were like, well, aren't they just getting unemployment? I'm like, have you tried to call the unemployment line? A lot of people are very uneducated, and my people work on tips.
Right.
And they make $200 to $500 a night working, and they're paid a minimum wage. So that's why you saw all the people in the hospitality industry really suffering during that time period.
I love that you really treat your employees like family. I mean, you do it with action, right? It's like they need food, let's get them food.
Yep.
They need whatever it is, they need a place to sleep, let's give them a place. It's very unique, very admirable. I appreciate that. How do you, and I know you mentioned before Coyote Ugly, you had Paradox. So you opened a nightclub. I mean, how old are you and you opening a night? I mean, how'd that happen?
23 years old, opened a nightclub called Paradox. And it was really a fun 90s time in Atlanta with R&B. So we had Jermaine Dupri night on Tuesday. Nice. So when you look through the pictures, it was like Pink was discovered there. Usher was there all the time. It was that whole hip-hop fun generation. And it was all only radio. It was so different then. We did radio ads. There was no social media. It's all in the newspaper. It's all hand-taken, pictures, all of that. So I just went forward and negotiated a lease then and did open Paradox. And luckily, it was in a great location, a great spot in Atlanta in Buckhead, which was a very fun, lively, bar area. And so we would do unique different nights, and that taught me a lot. Veering into this of the highs and the lows and just anything happening and having such a mix and variety of people. And that's when you went back to Coyote Ugly. That's one of the things I love so much is you'll have such a variety of people. You'll have young college kids. You'll have older guys smoking cigars. You'll have a bachelorette party. You just have such a fun mix of everybody.
Let me ask you, what would you say from your life experience, if somebody else was starting off in business, what would be the number one advice that you would tell them? Because the environment is probably a little different even than 10 or 20 years ago today. We've been through COVID. People are disenchanted. I feel like there's just this strange energy that's going on.
I do too.
Right? I mean,
where they don't feel the American dream, like just work, like do it. Right. I feel like that has died a little bit in the last few years.
Yeah. And what would you say, here you are, right? So coming out of college or whatever I'm doing, I'm in my young 20s and I want to do something entrepreneurial. What would you say would be the greatest idea, something to think about for them?
It's always definitely something you're passionate about and something you really love. But it has to be also, I'm big into real estate. So sure. I would say, again, if it's a bar, I would say pick the perfect location, buy the building, and just you got to believe in yourself 100% and not have a plan B and not have not have someone to lean back on, because times are going to get very tough. And you're going to have those days where you want to quit. And this, it's so you can't have that backup plan. I've seen when other entrepreneurs have that, I see them fall out in the difficult times. And so my number one advice would be that you've got to go into this full force, 110%. Working, it's day and night it's going to be really, really tough for those first few years. And you just got to get through that. And
I think I want to displace that fantasy of like social media. It's like, these flying private and going to do all these things. But to your point, it is blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes,
right?
It is.
You have to look within yourself. Do I have that, even if I'm not showing it today, but do I want a life of that? It's a lifestyle.
Right. And that's why they said it's like, everyone says it's like, I'm just a glorified landlord. I mean, I'm making sure my toilets all work. I'm fixing the AC units. We're going in every day doing this. And that's not, again, when I started, we didn't have social media. And you see the after pictures. You see the nice opening night or anniversary parties. Right. You don't see the everyday of going in and fixing and cleaning and doing all these things, inspections, all the things that go into it. Only very few people are able to deal with that part.
My wife tells me, kind of step back and delegate some more and do some, in my day-to-day real estate investing. And in the end, to your point, if you're an entrepreneur, if it's to clean the toilets, then you're going to clean the toilets. You have to see the vision.
Yep.
And it's A to Z. Whatever needs to be done,
You do it.
you just do it.
Correct.
And you do it with a smile all the time, always. If it's 3 a.m., you're doing that.
Yep.
That's also like super important. Looking back now on this journey, especially with Coyote Ugly and just life in general, what is something that you're deeply grateful for?
I'm deeply grateful for the team I've built. That I have such a good core group of people that have believed in me since day one, and I believed in them since day one. And we've all built this together, and I've made them, like you said, part of my family. That's really what I'm super grateful for, because that does allow me, what my original goal was to have more freedom. And, of course, you're always still, I call it the golden handcuffs. I can be anywhere, but you're always still working and looking over things. I'm still very proactive in it. But to be able to grow them and make their life better, there's nothing better than to see that. And I'm very grateful that I've been able to change a lot of people's life financially or other ways, that they have things they never thought either. And they've grown with me and believed in me and been there for me as well during those difficult times.
Love that. And what's something about you that people don't know?
I think people do think I'm more of an introvert extrovert. I do like to go out, but I also I like the homes that I create, and I like to spend a lot of time at home as well, reading, learning, podcast, listening to my podcast, always re-innovating what I can do, what other businesses I can slide into, and always learning and growing.
Yeah.
But I think there's a vision that I'm out all the time, but I'm home a lot of evenings in with my dog.
You need
Utah.
that. Yeah. No, for sure. You need that in order to balance. Yeah. I'm actually I've said it, but I'm also more of an introvert. I mean, I happen to be around a lot of things going on, but the quiet time to think and just be.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we need that space. A lot of times I think we're missing now is to be creative and have that quiet time. That's when I get some of my best ideas. We have so many things going, phones and this and that. You need that time, to really regroup and think, how can I make my business better? How can I be better? How can I be a better leader? How can I be a better owner? What, if this isn't working, let me look in the mirror and figure out how I can make this work better. So I definitely take that downtime to do that a lot.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Joanna. This has really been super nice. I love, it's again, that very unique entrepreneurial spirit, because it seems, again, that really what speaks out to me is the way you just jump right in, and knowing that's really what it is. It's just the hard work, and knowing that you're going to do whatever it takes. So I really appreciate it. I want to say thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I admire you as well. I'm glad we're on this real estate big journey together.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And how can people follow you on social?
They can on Instagram. It's Joanna D Olsen, JoannaDolsen. Google, or you can DM me, and I'm happy to talk with people. And I get mentored, and I'm happy to mentee and just have discussions about it. And that's something I've always done throughout my life, and I encourage that as well.
I love that. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Joanna. If you're watching the show on Facebook or YouTube, we'd be grateful for a like, share, and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, feel free to leave a rating and review. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.